Welcome back, everyone. We will discuss the interaction design on the what or the high level view of what we've talked about in the previous videos. So introduction. Basically, this is the last video about the basics of interaction design. So this is the most basic concept. Introduction. Think of a minute about how usable they are. How many are actually easy, effortless, and enjoyable to use? Some, like a tablet, are a joy to use, where tapping an app and flicking through photos is simple, smooth, and enjoyable. Others, like buying a train ticket from a ticket machine that does not recognize your credit card after completing a number of steps, and then makes you start again from scratch can be very frustrating. So why is there a difference? Alan Cooper, 2018, a well-known user experience guru, bemoans the fact that much of today's software suffers from the same interaction errors that were around 25 years ago. Why is this still the case, given that interaction design has been in existence for more than 30 years, and given that there are far more designers now in industry than ever before? He points out how many interfaces of new products do not adhere to the interaction design principles validated in the 1990s. For example, he notes that many apps do not follow even the most basic of user experience design principle, such as offering an undo option. He explains that it is inexplicable and unforgivable that these violations continue to resurface in new products today. How can we rectify this situation so that norm is that all new products are designed to provide good user experiences? To achieve this, we need to be able to understand how to reduce the negative aspects such as frustrations and annoyance while enhancing the positive ones, for example, enjoyable and efficacy. This entails developing interactive products that are easy to learn, effective, and pleasurable to use from a user's perspective. We consider what is gain and loss from transforming activities to be digital when previously they were done through using artifacts. We then describe what and who is involved in the process of interaction design. So the key theme here is interaction design is relevant, even though it was created 30 years ago. A lot of the problems that we face today, or 30 years ago, 25 years ago, are still prevalent today, such as the basic features that needs by the system, such as undo option. Since about 2010, UX design has been most widely used term in industry to refer to the profession. However, the terms have been used interchangeably. Also, it depends on each company's ethos and brand. Customer experience, on the other hand, refers to all of the interactions someone has with a company's offering, including the overall experience, the probability they will continue to use it, and the likelihood they will recommend it to others. In this sense, the UX is part of the wider CX, but the CX cover other aspects that the UX has traditionally not covered, based on Loden 2014 research. Basically, customer experience is broader, or this interaction design is a broader framework to look at human to computer interaction. Because for HCI, or human to computer studies in computer science, they only cover interaction with computers, not with other devices such as TV, iPad, and all other broad space of designing a product. So it requires a higher level skill sets because a lot of different industries and concepts needs to be integrated to create the product. Good and poor design. A central concern of interaction design is to develop interactive products that are usable. By this, we mean products that are generally easy to learn, effective to use, and provide an enjoyable experience for, sorry about that, um, for the intended people. A good place to start thinking about how to design usable interactive products is to compare examples of well-designed and poorly designed ones. Through identifying the specific weaknesses and strengths of different interactive products, we can begin to understand what it means for something to be usable or not. So the usability is usually means easy to learn. So this is another way for us to uh, start, or this is the best way to start on identifying the or learning the good and bad design, or learning the interaction design overall. So we start with comparing good design product with bad design product. So here, many viewers, especially when sitting in their living rooms, find it difficult to locate the right buttons, even for the simplest of tasks, such as pausing or finding the main menus. It can be frustrating for those who need to put on their reading glasses each time to read the buttons. The remote control appears to have been put together very much as an afterthought. So the common issue with remote is that it's difficult to locate the right button even for the simplest task. Later we will discuss how it was overcome, but you should be able to find the most basic task on your remote control because that's your input so that it is easy to learn. So the key here is that it should be easy to learn uh, because you're trying to weigh the pros and cons. Because is it really worth it to spend your time 30 minutes learning this a task that will only provide 5 minute value? So you also have to determine that for your customer. How was it possible to create such a usable and appealing remote devices where so many others have failed? The answer is simple. So here's a good user interface. Tivo invested the time and effort to follow a people-centered design process. Specifically, Tivo's director of product design at the time involved potential users in the design process, getting their feedback on everything from the feel of the device in the hand to where best to place the batteries, making them easy to replace but not prone to falling out. So they get their feedback early on from the feel of the device and where to place the battery. Of course, after the design, they were able to create a product that actually people wants. So this is related to agile methodologies that we've been discussing since the first videos. They did this by restricting the number of control buttons embedded in the device to the essential ones. Other functions were then represented as a part of the menu options and dialog boxes displayed on the TV screen, which can then be selected via the core set of physical control buttons. The result was a highly usable and pleasing device that has received much praise and numerous design awards. So they restrict the control button to the essential one. So they prioritize. And those infrequently used button, they place it into the menu in which you can only access using the screen interface. So they made it simple in the physical sense, and then they put the infrequently used function in the digital sense. In many ways, the TV interface, which one once consisted of simply choosing from among few channels has become more like a computer interface. This raises the question of whether the remote control is the best input device to use for someone who sits on a sofa or chair that is some distance from TV screen. Smart TV developers have addressed this challenge in a number of ways. So this raises a question: is the input the best for that TV? Because like what we've discussed in the previous chapter, there are different interfaces that you could use. So the designer experimented with this using different interfaces such as this, allowing to type keyboard, while here for an Apple design. So figure A, selecting letters and numbers from a square matrix. Here, it's an array by swapping along a single line of letters and numbers. So here, you swap the letters and numbers for an Apple design. So here, it's like a rectangle. However, here it's a square matrix. An early approach was to provide an on-screen keyboard and numeric keypad that presented a grid of alphanumeric characters. So here is the early approach, which were selected by pressing a button repeatedly on a remote control. However, entering the name of a movie or an email address and password using this method can be painstakingly slow. It is also easy to overshoot and select the wrong letter or number when holding a button on the remote to reach a target character. So the issue with this is that entering an email address and password using this is slow. It's also easy to overshoot and select the wrong letter. Let's just pause this video for a moment. No, let's not pause it. I'll come back to this just a moment. So other systems, let's go back. Other systems have tried alternatives such as, sorry guys, I need to take care of my laundry. Other systems have tried alternatives such as arrangement of the alphanumeric characters on screen using the numeral keys with their telephone style associated letters and sliding a small physical keyboard from the underside of the remote control. None of these have proven perfect. So even the ones that seems a good idea by getting a metaphor from something we already use, such as a telephone, may not work on the specific. So a key uh, takeaway is to apply it on your specific framework or specific use case. More recent remote controls, such as those provided by Apple TV, incorporate a touchpad to enable swiping, akin to control commonly found on laptops. So these uh, are one of the innovation. They implement the interface of swiping into TV. While this form of touch control expedites skipping through a set of letters displayed on a TV screen, it does not make it any easier to type in an email address and password. So it makes it easy to skip through set of letters, but it didn't make the input of email and password easy. So a big problem before with TV interface is entering email and password. Well, this can each letter, number, or special character still has to be selected. Swiping is also prone to overshooting when aiming for a target letter, number, or character. Instead of providing a rigid, the Apple TV interface display two single lines of letters, numbers, and special characters to swipe across. Well, this can make it quicker for someone to reach a character. It's still tedious to select a sequence of characters in this way. For example, if you select a Y and then select and then the next letter is an A, you have to swipe all the way back at the beginning of the alphabet. First, has pared down the number of buttons on its controllers to a core set of navigation ones. Up, down needed to interact with its media players. So, so a lot of interface issue happened, and they try to overcome these on the most effective on the case. Like this, the swiping made it easy to skip, but at the same time, it made the other feature harder. So to weigh the pros and cons or be conscious, like what we discussed in the previous video about the awareness, is very important in interaction design. Basically, that's what you could look at it as the interaction design itself. Fire Stick TV has pared down the number of buttons on its remote controllers to a core set of basic navigation. Once up, down needed to interact with streaming media players. On recognizing the command, the Echo will switch on the TV, switch to the right HDMI channel, open Netflix, and begin streaming the specific episode. A recent survey found voice input is becoming ever more popular. One in five TV users now use voice input to find movies, shows, or videos, change the channel, change the volume, or turn the TV on or off. So this is another innovation where Echo that provides voice input allows you to watch TV. It also has an automated interface that when you switch on the TV, it switches to the right HDMI channel. It opens the next automatically and begins the specific episode. Also, if the TV needs the viewer to provide password to access on-demand content, they won't want to say it aloud, character by character, especially for others who might also be in the room with them. The use of biometrics can be the answer. Basically, the use of biometrics that needs to be, it's on this use case, this is what I'm talking about, that it also depends on your use case because for providing for an on-demand content, the interface of voice is not available because as here it's a security indication. Later we will discuss how security of the fundamental design is false. To digital, that way walking up to a machine buying a ticket or an ATM to withdraw cash, many of us now do such transactions digitally using an app on our smartphone or tablet. Mostly this has made the task easier, quicker, and more convenient. An example is able to pay for parking via a mobile phone. 20th century park meters required drivers to insert coins to rent a parking space, which meant drivers didn't have couldn't legally park. So a big change in our generation or in the 20th century is a lot of things that basically are now done digitally. Now, instead of fumbling around trying to find the right change of the for time wanted and slot these into we can fill in an form in advance with their details and then pay each time we want to park using a digital pay and then be ready for the next time we need to pay for parking, meaning even fewer steps to complete subsequently. So as we can see, switching to digital or these interfaces is not it's not a good productivity answer for humans. So we were able to achieve this level of standard review because of this innovation. Basically, a lot of behaviors that we used to do physically are being done digitally. So those behaviors mostly for older people that sometimes they prefer those than filling out form in the website, which they are not used to because they didn't grow up with this. They just need us to type in the parking location number where we plan to park and the rest is filled in for us by the app. Some apps will even notify us on our phone when the time we have paid for is nearly up, asking if we would like to add time. All we need do is press a button from our phone. Not only does this form of digital prompting prevent us from risking a fine if we exceed the time limit, but it also provides more revenue for the parking company. So it provides a win-win situation where both the user or the customer and the parking company benefits. These are an example of that. A form used for a parking app in the UK takes 5 seconds to complete and can be done while sitting in the car. Many previously physical transactions have been digitalized like this. Other examples include buying tickets from an entertainment site like movie, a concert, a play, or booking ticket to go somewhere, like train, a bus, an airline. An added benefit is not having to wait in line before being able to buy a physical ticket. The customer can also check various preferences for which kind of ticket they want, which can all be stored and accessed again at a later date. So a lot of things we are not aware of, but it's important for us to be aware such that if we are encounter this new, which will eventually will, such as booking a movie, a concert, a play, it already reduced the cognitive load to learn that. So it makes it easier to learn. There are, however, disadvantages of switching over to digital. First, it requires a person to possess a smartphone that is capable of downloading and storing the digital tickets. Second, some people still prefer to use older phones, which the apps won't work on, while others prefer to have paper-based tickets. Third, it can also be stressful and cumbersome to some people, especially if they do not have much battery power in their phone or they need to fumble around trying to find access to data on their phone. It's another vocabulary. Most often, the reason why people is does not want to adopt this, it requires them to possess a phone capable of downloading. Second, older people prefer phone because it's easier to use. Third, it's stressful, especially if they don't have the battery power because remember, not a lot of people have been using this technology. So you need to make sure that it's usable. There's of course the option of printing out digital ticket onto paper, but that assumes someone has access to it. A further problem is if it's entitled to a discount, like senior is able to require them to show 40% the ticket collector, which can mean having to switch the apps, which can be cumbersome. So this is a security issue. Basically, it will be discussed later on one of the fundamental principles, which is safety. People disabled using certain assistive technologies might be unable to use digital ticket, which could lead to a legal and ethical issues as well as emotional distress. Another disadvantage is that people like to divulge their personal details online and prefer ticket and social media. Another issue is with assistive or making products fair that can be used by all people. Another is that some people don't want to be to provide their deals. So they want to be honest. Designing interactive products requires either who is going to be using them, how they are going to be using them, and where they are going to be used. Another key concern is to understand the activities people are doing when interacting with the product. The appropriate use of different interfaces and of input and output devices then on what kind of activities are to be supported. So you ever ask yourself what to decide? The input and output and the activities of the user. So you can go back to the basics of the activities and how the activities are related to user design, system design, etc. For example, sorry, let's back up a little bit. So this one design is related to how they are going to design it, when, where, and who. So the WH questions like this understanding the model. For example, if the activity enables people to find an interface secure, trustworthy, and easy to navigate is essential. And an interface that allows customers to information about services offered by their bank without it being intrusive would be useful. There are many types of interfaces and interactive devices available now, including touch displays, speech-based systems, mobile devices, and wearables. There are also many ways of designing how people can interact with them, for instance, via the use of commands, forms, and so on. More innovative everyday artifacts are being created using novel materials such as e-textiles. Wearable glasses that look like fashionable shapes have also started to appear, such as snap spectacles that let wear experience augmented reality. Here's an example. Basically, To know what to design, you need to know what interfaces is available. So it's related to the interfaces concept that we will discuss. And also, it also is new, completely new and innovative technology such as wearable, because a lot of this interface is just old technology in which you can make something new by combine a new, providing ways of combining them. So a lot of times, like companies have the old way of thinking or their behavior has been ingrained with one way of doing things. But use that is now how designers will be able to combine different interfaces that they will be useful on your specific use case or framework. More recently, smart supermarkets have appeared that do not require the shopper to even have to check out the goods they want to purchase. A sophisticated network of AI-enabled cameras in the ceiling, together with shelves embedded with sensors, determine what customer picks and puts in their basket, billing the consumers daily to the store. These are another use of new technologies such as AI and sophisticated network and computer vision in shopping, and what actually realize of people such as shopping. The smarts are in how computer vision, sensor fusion, and deep learning are customers and what to from or replace a shelf. Amazon Go pioneered store with other supermarkets now testing their own versions. The advent of Internet of Things, where data is collected from sensors and travels via the Internet of other devices, have been embedded in several of our household products. For example, a popular household IT-enabled product is home security, where people can keep an eye on their home from the data relayed via combination of space in their home. Another way of combining is using the Internet of Things, where you use sensor to connect to the environment of your home and then send it via Internet, and you can check via smartphone. Some base security cameras also use machine learning to recognize when an intruder is entering into the house using facial recognition. Machine learning is also being used in a range of other home-based processes automated surveillance, which is not important for a house with algorithms and energy consumption. Also used in terms to optimize and decisions need to be made based on understanding of people, including the following: considering what people are good at, considering what might help with the way they currently do things, thinking through what might provide quality experience, considering the privacy if data is being collected, listening to what people want and getting involved in the design, using people-centered techniques during the design process. So a lot of this is awareness that the things that people currently do is not best. There's always area of improvement. And additional takeaways is by implementing these things such as people needs by asking the feedback and then after measuring it using data and then articulating it through writing by previously the other things you are able to provide a better product or better assumption of what to design. What's in interaction? In interaction design, we mean the following. Design interactive products for the way people communicate after everyday lives. Put another way, it's about creating experience that enhance the way to work, communicate, and interact. Generally, and we originally described it as designing space for human communication and interaction. So it's about designing product that support the goals or everyday activities of people. It's about creating the environment, like what we've discussed in attention and then salient information. Like you want to set up the system or the environment to be able to help you do your task. They should not, you're using this because basically you're using the technology in its good form because this can be used in bad form as well, such as like social media. It You can be addicted, so that's not what human or interaction design is about. It's about designing products in the proper proper alternatives or balance of pros and cons, because is it really worth it to like learn a product for like 5 hours if you're just gonna use that in 5 minutes? So it's about having creating that product also by considering other um, principles as well, such as safety, and then providing the product in. to most people as possible. So there's a lot of consideration, but basically that's why it's complex. You're not just dealing with the easy to use on specific target people or group of people, but to most people, and being aware and articulate with your decision. The components of interaction design. We view the interaction design as a fundamental to many discipline fields and approaches that are concerned with researching and designing computer-based systems for people. It can be confusing to try to work out the difference between them as many overlap. The main differences between the interaction design and the other approaches referred to in this figure come largely down to which methods, philosophies, and lenses they use to study, analyze, and design products. Another way they vary is in terms of the scope and the problems they address. So there's a lot of ways to design a problem depending on the use cases. Here is another vocabulary for the different kinds of design: academic disciplines, ergonomic psychology, cognitive psychology, design informatics. There could be many more, but these are just the basic. Engineering, relationship among contributing academic disciplines, design those whose software tools have been developed for scientists or researchers, clinicians to use as part of their methodology. These include the built environment, bioinformatics, medicine, marketing, computational biology, and computational design. We could also try to add a number of other fields and practices that have begun to inform interaction design, including behavioral economics, ethics, accessibility, and AI. So there are other fields as well, such as cybersecurity, that could be added to this, but these are the basic fields. Another concept or field that we could add is the software tools that provides a combination of these fields, such as the software tools used by clinicians or scientists as part of their methods. So they may be using like software to expedite their job or this technology. So who is involved in interaction design? Designers need to know many different things about people, technologies, and interactions among them to create effective experiences. At the least, they need to understand how people act and react to events and how they communicate, interact with each other. To be able to create an engaging experience, they also need to understand how emotions work, what is meant by aesthetics, desirability, and the role of narrative in human experience. So, designers, what I think about it is they are required to understand human psychology. So we have to read a lot of fiction when they are young. We need to know psychology. They need to know the available technologies, and then they have to study continuously because human or this field actually move fast like an AI. So or AI field. So you need to always keep learning because the interaction of this complicated system like technology, people, psychology is complex adaptive system. They also need to understand the business side, technical side, manufacturing side, and marketing side. Recently, there has been more emphasis on understanding the ethical aspects, especially for technologies that are collecting ever-increasing amounts of personal data, such as perceived to be trustworthy and valued and understandable by general public. Clearly, it is difficult for one person to be well-versed in all of these diverse areas and also know how to apply the different forms of knowledge to the process of interaction design. Interaction design is ideally carried out by multidisciplinary teams where the skill sets of engineers, designers, programmers, psychologists, anthropologists, sociologists, marketing people, artists, toy makers, and product managers, and others are drawn upon. One of the benefits of bringing together the people with different backgrounds and training is the potential of many more ideas being generated, new methods developed, and more creative and original designs being produced. However, the downside is the cost involved. The more people there are with different backgrounds in a design team, the more difficult it can be to communicate and make progress with design being generated. Why? People with different backgrounds have different perspectives and ways of seeing and talking about the world. What one person values is as important, others may not even see. Similarly, a computer scientist's understanding of the term representation is often very different from that of a graphic designer, media specialist, or psychologist. What this means in practice is that confusion, misunderstanding, and communication breakdowns can surface in a team. The various team members may have different way of talking about design and may use the same terms to mean quite different things. Other problems can arise when a group of people who have not previously worked as a team are thrown together. Basically, these are as complex as you would imagine for a job because it requires you not just to understand the capabilities or the available technologies, but to also deal with people along the process. Because different people with different culture have different way of talking about the world. So you might be talking this for a computer scientist as representation, may be different for a graphic designer. That's why it's complex adaptive system and it requires a lot of different skill sets that is deep in different industries. So in answering the question who is involved in interaction design, it's complex, just like the stakeholders we've discussed in the previous chapter. For example, Aruna Balakrishnan in 2011 found that integration across different disciplines and expertise is difficult in many projects, especially when it comes to agreeing on and sharing tasks. The more disparate the team members in terms of culture, background, and organizational structures, the more complex this is likely to be. So it's it may be simple or you may think that you are great when you were able to create or design a product on your own, but it requires a different skill set when you're trying to involve a lot of people because like involving a lot of people there's a problem though once done successfully you are able to create this big system that is like a life on its own that does not need your interaction kind of like a business or a child so that's what you're trying to create when designing a good product. Ideally, each team will have a number of different people with different skill sets. For example, the first interactive product would include the following individuals: graphic and interaction designers, museum curators, educational advisors, software engineers, software designers, and ergonomists. The second project would include this type of individuals: TV producers, graphic and interaction designers, teachers, screenwriters, information architects, UX researchers, video experts, software engineers, and software designers. So these are is how you make a system that's standard on its own and that's hard to replicate. It's how you build like companies, so it's harder because it doesn't rely on any specific individual. It's the most complex job, kind of like a job of a CEO. Interaction design consultancies. Marketing departments focus on how the branding, the number of engagements, the customer return rate, and customer satisfaction are greatly affected by the usability of a website. Many now have their own toolkits for testing different aspects of a website. For example, using A/B testing to determine the effect of different UI designs on metrics such as sales or the number of repeat visitors. Financial services, retail government, marketing, video and film producers, and the public sector have realized its value too. The presence or absence of good interaction design can make or break a company. Getting noticed in the highly competitive field of smartphone apps requires standing out, being able to demonstrate that your product is easy, effective, and engaging to use is seen as central to this. Smaller consultancies such as Bonnie Foot and Dovetail promote diversity, interdisciplinary, and scientific research, having psychologists, researchers, and interaction designers, usability and computer experience specialists on its board. So there's actually, because of this, hard to do or replicate combination of different skills. There are interaction design consultancies that specialize on this design. So there's no or the main job is to know how to combine all of this concept for you to create your a good design product if that's your main business value. People-centered design. People-centered design involves understanding how people feel about a product and their pleasure and satisfaction when using it, looking at it, holding it, and opening or closing it. It includes their overall impression of how good it is to use, right down to the sensual effect and small details have on them, such as how smoothly a switch rotates or the sound of a click and touch of a button when pressing it. So before we discuss an interaction design as a broad topic which encompasses different fields, but for if we focus on a good design, a people-centered design, it is a detailed perspective of design in which it includes the overall impression, such as the sensual effect small details have on them. Basically, even in the smallest details, you're thinking about this. For example, uh, Microsoft download in Teams uh, of images is actually not as good interface if you want to download a lot of images from Teams. So I don't think they've thought about of a function of making that easy for people. So yeah, that is another opportunities to small details, opportunities on how you could uh, design these technologies. For example, the Microsoft Edge as well. There's a lot of things that I've noticed that could be improved, such as maybe making easy to export a bookmark, etc. But I know that it all depends on the limitations of the web, right, on the screen. So later we will discuss how these are related to one of the basic principle of design, which is visibility. Because if it's visible, the function is visible on your window in the limited screen, you're able to better find it, or it's more usable. It's more people-centered, in short. As Don Norman 2004 stressed earlier, it is not enough that we build products that function, that are understandable and usable. We also need to build joy and excitement, pleasure and fun, and yes, beauty to people's lives. Apple realized early on that successful interaction design involves creating interactive products that provide not just usable but also enjoyable experiences. The sleek appearance of the iPad music player, see figure 1.6, it is simplicity of use, its elegance in style, and its distinctive family of rainbow colors. A novel interaction style that many people discovered was a sheer pleasure to learn and use, and the catchy naming of its product and contents, iTunes, iPod, among many other design features, led it to becoming one of the greatest products of its kind and a must-have fashion item for teenagers, students, and adults alike. While there were many competing players on the market at that time, some with more powerful functionality, others that were cheaper and easier to use, for still others with bigger screens, more memory, and so forth. The quality of the overall experience paled in comparison to that provided by the iPad. In addition, Apple provided a whole ecosystem to accompany the iPad, including the iTunes Store app, where millions of licensed music tracks could be bought for less than $1 each. So Apple didn't necessarily have more function. They just know how to combine things that provides a better overall user experience, which actually made them successful. And they bring that design principle in all of their products, which provide a compound returns on their customers. And since they already have the money, they were able to bought other companies which continue to their success. Apple has continued to design products that are both beautiful and usable. Most notable are the iPad and the range of iPhones. It even designed what was at the time a completely new customer experience for buying technology in the form of the Apple Store, from how it draws people in and what they do when browsing, discovering, and purchasing goods in the store. There are no checkouts, to pay for goods, just roaming Apple employees holding mobile devices that they interact with to make an order for a customer, take a payment, and email them a receipt. So what used to be like a store representative was now integrated to an Apple store. They are ready to accept a payment for your app of choice and send you an email for a receipt. These Apple apps used to have like a payment, right? But now it's mostly free and you are the product. So they also allow them to discover similar apps, which allows them to provide like a store experience on the app in a card readable way, which we discussed in the previous video. There are no checkouts to pay for goods, just roaming Apple employees holding mobile device that they interact with to make an order from a customer. So Apple now has a new kind of retail space akin to being more like a town square where everyone in various community activities take place weekly, like the so it's also a community in which it provides a way to learn to code. So this item combines different ways now. So what used to be a community for physical space is now being done in the Apple Store. There are many aspects of the user experience that can be considered and many ways of taking them into an account when designing interactive products. Of central importance are the usability, functionality, aesthetic, content, look and feel, and emotional appeal. So these are the most important: usability, functionality, aesthetics, content, look, and emotional appeal. So this usability have different design principles such as utility, safety, which we will discuss later. Functionality is important. Aesthetics, content, the actual content, just like a book, right? Some book does not have an appealing cover, but the content is good. Look and feel, the color, is it attractive? Emotional appeal, what it invoke, which we will discuss in the future videos. In addition, Jack Carroll 2004 stresses other wide-ranging aspects including fun, health, and social capital, the social resources that develop and are maintained through social networks, shared values, goals and norms, and cultural identities such as age, ethnicity, race, disability, family status, occupation, and education. So there's also other aspects that you could consider. How does one go about designing quality experience for people? There's no secret sauce or magic formula that can be readily applied by interaction designers. However, there are numerous conceptual frameworks, tried and tested design methods, guidelines, and relevant research findings, which are described throughout the book. So again, the complex adaptive system nature of design means that you actually need to understand the main principle or the research because there's a lot of ways to explain it or there are a lot of available options just like the basic principles and the options that available is changing based on new discoveries. So you have to be aware on that option and then apply the you need to make a conscious decision based on the best available option and the conscious decision, the pros and cons available to you at a specific time may be different at the other time because you're trying to weigh the consequences, and the information available to you at that time may not be available in the other type. So yeah, and also you need to consider the restrictions based on your business needs. Understanding people, a collaborative planning tool for a space mission intended to be used by teams of scientists working in different parts of the world will have a quite different needs from one targeted at customers and sales agents to be used in a future store to draw up kitchen layout plans. Understanding individual differences can also help designers appreciate that one size does not fit all. What works for one group of people may be totally inappropriate for another. So this is what I'm talking about. For example, children have different expectations than adults about how they want to learn or play. They may find having interactive quizzes and cartoon characters helping them along to be highly motivating, whereas most adults find them annoying. Teenagers enjoy short videos such as the ones they watch and upload to TikTok and YouTube. Conversely, adults often like podcast discussions about topics which children and teenagers may find boring. So since adult has their brain already matured, they are more inclined to long form of videos such as podcasts, while the kids that don't have their brains matured yet are tend to like short form activities. Learning more about people and what they can do also reveal incorrect assumptions that designer may have about particular groups and what they need. For example, it is often assumed that because of deteriorating vision and dexterity, older people want this to be it text or graphical elements appearing on a screen or physical controls like dials and switches used to control devices. So older people like big text or graphical elements appearing on the screen or physical controls such as dials or switches to control their devices. So they want big inputs. Another thing that I will add to this is that since these include people, it also requires the understanding of humans, which you only get from fiction. But this understanding of human, which you get from fiction, depends on the number of books that you have read and how you are able to inhale the book. And also, these books are provide like a lifetime nourishment that may not be easily grasped when you were young or at one read. So yeah, it also depends on that. So that's what makes it complex because it includes people, not just technology. This may be true for some older people, but studies have shown that many people in their 70s, 80s, and older are perfectly capable of interacting with standard-sized information and even small interfaces, for example, smartphones, just as well as those in their teens and 20s, even though initially some might think they will find it difficult. From Scheck research in 2005, it is increasingly the case that people get older. They do not like to consider themselves as getting older, associated with lacking in cognitive and manual skills. Being aware of people's sensitivities, such as aging, is as important as knowing how to design for their capabilities. In, in particular, while many older adults now feel comfortable with the use and use a range of technologies, for instance, email, online shopping, online games, or social media, they may resist adopting new technologies based on research recently in 2021. This is not because they don't receive them as being useful to their lives, but because they don't want to waste their time getting caught up by the distractions that digital life brings. For example, not wanting to be glued to one mobile phones like young generation. Being aware of cultural differences is also an important concern for interaction design, particularly for products intended for a diverse range of groups from different countries. So, culture awareness, age awareness is important. Adults may not really want to be addicted because they saw their kids completely abandon reading book? Why is it that certain products like a fitness tracker are universally accepted by people from all parts of the world, whereas websites are designed differently and reacted to differently by people from different cultures? Does the design and use of social media platform differ across cultures such as Weibo and Twitter? Is used primarily in China by more than 500 million people, whereas the latter is used worldwide by more than 200 million people. Accessibility and inclusiveness. Inclusiveness means being fair and equal to everyone. Inclusive design is an overarching approach where designers strive to make their products and services accommodate the widest possible number of people. An example is ensuring smartphones are designed for all and made available to everyone, regardless of their disability, education, age, or income. Inability to use a product can result because technologies are often designed in such a way as to necessitate a certain type of interaction that is possible for someone with a disability. Such an inability is viewed as the result of poor interaction design between a person and the technology, not the people alone. So there's a problem with accessibility because products designed to have an input for the system to create an output. Technologies that are now mainstream once started out as a solution to accessibility challenge. For example, SMS was designed for hearing impaired people before it became mainstream technology. Furthermore, designing for accessibility inherently results in inclusive design for all. So when you design for the worst case scenario, such as the people with accessibility issue, it leads to designing for all because you already prepare for the worst case. Accessibility can be achieved in two ways. First, through the inclusive design of technology, and second, through the design of assistive technology. When designing for accessibility, it is essential to understand the types of impairments that can lead to disability as they come in many forms. They are often classified by the type of impairment, for example, sensory impairment such as loss of vision or hearing, physical impairment having loss of function to one or more parts of the body, for example, a stroke or spinal cord injury, cognitive distance learning impairment or loss of memory, cognitive function due to a condition such as Alzheimer. Cognitive, it's about learning impairment, so it's really hard for you to learn it in your brain. Sensory, it's about vision and hearing, the primary senses. Physical impairment, loss of function of one or more parts of the body, such as your hand. So the accessibility includes assistive concept and accessibility. So these are the three common principles for assistive and accessibility. Within each type is a complex mix of people and capabilities. For example, a person might have only peripheral vision, be color blind, or have no line perception, and be blind. AI are forms of visual impairment and all require different design approaches. Color blindness can be overcome by an inclusive design approach. Designer can choose colors that will appear as separate colors to everyone. However, peripheral vision loss or complete blindness will often need an assistive technology design. So within this each type, there's a mix of people. So people could be color blinded with or sensory impaired with, at the same time visual impaired. So AI are forms of visual impairment and require different design approach. Color blindness can be overcome by inclusive design approach by using some technologies in HTML. Designer choose what will appear as a separate to everyone. So, peripheral vision loss, complete blindness will often be assisted. So, technology is actually for the blind people. So, inclusive design is like uh, here. As you see, it's not that easy to describe inclusive and accessible design. Permanent, for example, long-term wheelchair user. Temporary, such as an accident or in a situation of emergency environments means a person can hear. So you also distinguish those three, the combination of those three into these different types of circumstances, such as emergency environment, uh, after an accident. Number of people living with permanent disability increase with age. Fewer than 20% of people are born with disability, whereas 80% of people will have disability once they reach 85. As people age, their abilities diminish. For example, as people older, they find it more difficult to conversation syndrome with hard surfaces and of background. So here's an example of include these are actually a artificial fit foot rather. So it makes it align with the um, user outfit. Usability and experience goals are also of understanding people's the primary objective of developing an product for them. Is it to design an efficient system that will allow them to be highly productive in their work? Is it to design a learning tool that will be challenging and motivating? Or is it something else? To help identify the objectives, we suggest classifying them in terms of usability and user experience goals. So sometimes it even though we know all these concepts already, it can be hard to define or to be focused on what's really the most important design goals. Usability goals are typically stated as questions. The purpose is to provide the interaction designer with a concrete means of assessing various aspects of an interactive product and the user experience. However, simply asking, is the system easy to learn, is not going to be very helpful. Asking about the usability of a product in a more detailed way, for example, how long will it take someone to figure out how to use the most basic functions for a new smartphone? How much can they capitalize on from their prior experience, and how long will it take them to learn the whole set of functions? Will elicit far more useful information. So here we're talking about being articulate, not just asking. So we already know that the more learnable system is, the more it is aligned with usability of the product. But what what do you really mean by easy to learn? You need to specify clearly in details. The more detail, the better, because it's like planning or a career plan. The more clear you are with your career on the things that you want, the better you are to, the more likely you are to achieve your goals because you know exactly what you're looking. It's related to being clear in attention. If you have the clear goals, you've won half of the battle. Usability goals. Traditionally, usability goals are concerned with meeting specific usability criteria such as efficiency, where user experience goals are concerned with explicating the nature of the user experience, for instance, to be aesthetically pleasing. It is important to note, however, that the distinction between the two types of goal is not clear cut. Since usability is often fundamental to the quality of the user experience, and conversely, aspects of the user experience, such as how it feels and looks, are inextricably linked with how usable product is. So traditionally, we measure the usability using specific goals such as efficiency, whereas user experience goals are concerned with the nature of the user experience. However, the distinction of that could be hard to differentiate because again, you need to be detailed. What do you really mean? And how would you prove that the assumption of the meaning that you thought it is actually proven by science, right? Effectiveness. So we will start. But it's still useful, right, to have this like framework or like this vocabulary for us to start our design process in case that we are unclear about our goal. So effectiveness is a general goal and it refers to how good the product is at doing what it's supposed to do. Question, is the product capable of allowing people to carry out their work efficiently, access the information that they need, or buy the goods they want? It's about supporting people. Is it fast? Does it actually provide value? Does that learning the system for 5 minutes save them like 25 minutes of work? Efficiency refers to the way a product supports people in carrying out their tasks. The example mentioned earlier of buying tickets online using stored personal details on the app is considered efficient. Once people have entered all of the necessary personal details in an online form to make a purchase, they can let the website up save all of their personal details. So it automates this cognitive load. So you only do it once and it provides you a compound returns of returns in terms of cognitive energy saved. So that's efficient. Then, if they want to make another purchase at that site, they don't have to re-enter all of their personal details. A highly successful mechanism presented by Amazon is the one-click option, which requires people to click only a single button when they want to make another purchase. Question: how many steps does it take to complete the task? How does storing a person's personal details make it more efficient? So now we're not just asking the how to the detail. This is the detail. How does storing a person's personal details make it more efficient? So there is a available technology which is cache that allows us to store the personal details. Then asking that how that particular tool or concept actually make it more efficient. Safety involves protecting a person from dangerous conditions and undesirable situations. In relation to their first ergonomics aspect, it refers to the external condition where people work. For example, where there are hazardous X-ray machines or chemical operators should be able to interact with and control computer-based systems remotely. So for hazardous environment, you need to be able to control it remotely because you can't be physically there. And this safety is different for different cases as well. Just like in fraud department or security, you have to balance the convenience and the security because both are goes hand in hand. The second aspect refers to helping anyone in any kind of situation to avoid the dangers of carrying out unwanted actions accidentally. It also refers to the perceived fears that someone might have of the consequences of making errors and how this affect their behavior. Making interactive products safer in this sense involve preventing the user from making serious errors by reducing the risk of wrong keys buttons being mistakenly activated. An example is not placing the quit or delete file command right next to the save command on a menu, and providing people with various means of recovery should they make errors, such as undo function. So you may think that undo function is like another feature, but it's actually part of a safety design usability criteria. Safe interactive systems should engender confidence and give people the opportunity to explore the interface to try new operations. So here, a safe and unsafe menu, which is which and why. So a warning dialog box that asks you if you want to pursue the action. So another safety mechanism is confirming the dialog boxes that give user another chance to consider that their intention. A well-known example is the appearance of a dialog box after issuing a command to delete everything you want. Question: what is the range of errors that are possible using the product, and what measures are there to prevent someone to recover easily from them? It refers to the extent to which the product provides the right kind of functionality so that users can do what they need or want to do. An example of a product with high utility is an accounting software package that provides powerful computational tool that accountants can use to work tax return. An example product with low utility is software drawing tool that does allow users to draw 300% use a mouse to create drawings using only polygon shapes. Question: does not provide an appropriate settings that will enable them to carry out all their tasks in the way they want them. So this utility is more like specific, task specific. For example, an accountant, you want to have a lot of specific knowledge about the topic such as accountant calculating tax return and combining those knowledge into one tool that provides the function in how they want to do it, which is sometimes fast, sometimes they want it to do slow depending on your people. Learnability refers to how each product is learned to use. Generally, people want to get started right away and become competent and carrying out this task with effort. These are interactive and intended for everyday use. For example, social media and those used only infrequently. For instance, online tax form. Learning may continue over the lifetime of someone's interaction with the product so that basic use eventually becomes mastery. So not just that, you also have to think about the lifetime value of your customer or the lifetime use of the product in every step. Like you will only know this after you have the product for some time because you don't really have the data yet when the product is out, so you don't know how usable it is. That's why you only sometimes you only know this after some time, and there could be it could spawn a lot of related or unrelated knowledge that you may not have thought when creating the product. Some people are prepared to spend a lot longer time learning more complex systems that provide wider range of functionality, such as web authoring tools. In these situations, pop-up tutorials can help by providing contextualized step-by-step material with hands-on exercise. A key concern is determining how much time someone is prepared to spend learning a product. Question: is it possible for someone to basic product by exploring certain actions? How hard will it be to master the product in this are additional learning tools? So with learnability, it includes this function because some products could be learned by people with its GUI, while others you need to really read the tutorials to understand its complex details because it's not to understand, but it could provide more functionality. Memorability is to remember how to use once learned. This is especially important in interactive products that are used infrequently. If someone hasn't used an operation for a few months or longer, they should be able to remember or at least be reminded how to use it. So memorability is crucial for products that we use infrequently. It's hard to mm, like you may have learned that before, but it's not memorable. So you need to do this thing all over again. So it has a lot of cognitive load that could be used in other tasks. They should keep learning how to carry out tasks. Unfortunately, these applications require build of skeptical or poorly sequenced. People need to be helped to remember how to do tasks. There are many ways of designing the interaction to support this. So basically, it's about understanding the mental models and a wide variety of products. So I think it comes with experience. The more mental models and products you create, the better you know what is the mental model that is logical in terms of your people. For example, users can be helped to remember the sequence of operation and different stages of tasks through contextual icons, meaningful command names, and menu options. Also, structuring options and icons so that they are placed in relevant categories of options. For example, placing all of the drawing tools in the same place on the screen can help a user remember where to look to find a particular tool at a given stage of a task. Question: what types of interface support have been provided to help someone remember how to carry out tasks, especially for ones they use infrequently. So you can organize your related tools or similar tools in one screen or menu such that it's easy or visible and easy to be memorized. So this function generally refers to how acceptable a product is when being used. It's often used to measure a customer's experience. Various satisfaction scales have been developed for this purpose. For example, asking customers to give a score from 1 to 5 indicate how satisfied they are after using a product. The more no one is So, question, what are the main median cities at scale? What portion of users say they are highly satisfied with the product? How many people are still satisfied after using the product for 6 months? Examples of commonly used usability criteria time to complete a task and the number of errors made when carrying out a given task. Memorability. This can provide quantitative indicators of the extent to which productivity has increased or how work, training, or learning have been improved. So part of the satisfaction, I think you have noticed when an application are asking for a survey because it's asking how satisfied you are with the product. So it's a combination of efficiency, memorability, and then data analytics that you will require for user listings. User experience goal. Many of these are subjective qualities, so we were able to describe how to be clear when the goals is not clear, which the half of the battle. Many of these are subjective qualities and are concerned with, but user experience is subjective. Okay, so it's more deal with the satisfaction side. So many they differ from the more objective usability goals in that they are concerned with how people experience in an interface product from their perspective rather than assessing how useful or productive system is from its own perspective. So you're talking about the overall system to measure how the usable the product. Here, you're asking about how satisfied people is when using the product. So it is more describing their emotion when using it, satisfying, enjoyable, engaging, pleasurable, exciting, entertaining, the desirable aspects, helpful, motivating, challenging, enhancing social beauty, supporting creativity, cognitively stimulating, evocative, surprising, rewarding, visually fulfilling experience. Terrible aspects, boring, frustrating, making one feel guilty, annoying, childish, patronizing, making one feel stupid, cute, gimmicky, invasive, deceptive, annoying. Um, they also overlap with what they are preferring to. So the different options for expressing the way an experience varies for the same activity over time. Technology and place, for example, we may describe listening to music in the shower as highly pleasurable, more apt to listen to music in the car as enjoyable. So for listening to music in the shower, you can describe it as highly pleasurable. Listening on a high and powerful music system invoke exciting and emotionally fulfilling, while listening to it on a smartphone and that has as shuffle mode is serendipity enjoyable. So serendipity is enjoyable, especially not knowing what tune is next. Lots of selectors that convey a person feeling state of being, emotion stations, and support when using or interacting with the product. Designers understand the multifaceted nature of the user experience. The concept further defines elements that contribute to making a user experience pleasurable, fun, exciting, and so on. They include attention, pace, interactivity, conscious and conscious mode, style of narrative, and flow. The concept of flow in 1997 continues to be popular in interaction design for forming experiences for websites, games, and other interactive products. It refers to a state of intense emotion that's come from being completely involved in activity like music and where time flies. Instead of designing website to cater to visitors who only want, you can design to induce a state of flow, leading the visitor to some unexpected place where they become completely absorbed. Local user experience to be affected by single action on an interface. For example, people can get much pleasure from that's the level of blinding seeming enjoy flickering their finger from the bottom of a smartphone screen or reveal a new menu where the effect that appears by magic or enjoy the sound of trash being emptied from the trash can on the screen. This one-off action can be performed infrequently or several times a day, which the person never tries of doing.
Dan Sapper in 2014 has described this as micro-interacting and argues that designing these moments of interaction at the interface, despite being small, can have a big impact on the user experience. Some combination will also be incompatible. For example, it may not be possible or desirable to design a process control system that is both safe and fun. Recognizing and understanding the nature of the relationship between usability and user experience goals is central to interaction design. So sometimes you have to really choose between the user experience or the usability criteria because again, the security and convenience goes hand in hand. It enables designers to become aware of the consequence of pursuing different combinations when designing products and highlighting potential trade-offs and conflicts as suggested by Jack Carroll 2004, articulating the interaction of the various components of the user experience can lead to a deeper and more significant interpretation of the role of each component. So if you enter the act of writing the interaction of the various component of the user experience can lead to deeper, more significant interpretation of the role of each component. So the things or the combination that you may not have up when you didn't write it may be clearer once you're able to explain or articulate it. Eric Schaffer in 2009 argued that we should be focusing more on the user experience and less on usability. He pointed out how many websites are designed to persuade or influence rather than enable people to perform their tasks in an efficient manner. For example, many shopping site or business of selling services and products where a core strategy is to entice people to buy, they may not have they need. So online shopping experiences are increasingly about persuading people to buy rather than being designed to make shopping easy. This involves designing for persuasion, emotion, and trust, which may not be compatible with yours. Many online travel sites try to lure visitors to purchase additional such as hotels, insurance, car rental, car parking, or day trips beside the flight they originally wanted. They will add a full list of tempting topics to the visitor's booking, from which then to us scroll to before being able to transaction. So basically, this has been resulted to persuasion or manipulation of like some sites makes you harder to go back to the previous menu. So they make it easy for you to buy the things that you don't want. So it's the ethical issue of user experience. That's why you need to balance it. Many sites go to great lengths to make it difficult for you to leave. You think you have unsubscribed, but then you discover that you need to type in your email and click several more buttons to reaffirm that you really want to quit. Then, just when you think you are safe, they post a survey asking you to answer a question about why you want to leave. Sarah Bignell, she argues that companies should adopt fair and ethical design where people have to opt in to any actions that benefit the company at the expense of their interest. So we will just start with this design principles with the visibility. Uh, and then we'll continue on the next video because it's too long. These design principles are used by interaction designers to aid their thinking when designing for the user experience. These are generalizable abstractions intended to orient designers when thinking about different aspects of their design. Design principles are derived from a mix of theory-based knowledge, experience, and common sense. So it's a combination of theory-based experience and common sense. Visibility refers to how an interface is designed to show what someone needs to do next to progress with their task. Don Norman in 1998 describes the control of a car to emphasize this point. The control for different operations are clearly visible, such as indicators, headlights, horns, and hazard warning lights, indicating what can be done. The relationship between the way the controls have been positioned in their car, and what they do made it easy for their driver to find the appropriate control for the task at hand. Newer electric cars, however, have been designed so that the controller activated from a touchscreen next to the steering wheel. While easier to design and update from an engineering perspective, it can make it harder for the driver to know where to find them. In contrast, when the functionality are out of sight, it makes them more difficult to find and know how to use, for example, devices and environments that have become automated through the use of sensor technology, usually for hygiene and energy saving reasons. Like faucets, elevators, and lights, can sometimes be more difficult for people to know how to control, especially how to activate or deactivate them. This can result in people getting caught short and frustrated. It does not explain, however, what to do if you were wearing black coating. So here is an automatic faucet. So to turn on, you walk up to the sink. To turn off, walk away from the sink. So black coating clothing does not operate faucets. So what would you do if it does not show or it does not provide rules or articulate rules or and then does not provide function when you wear black? So these are the example of the design for visibility. As you can see, it also incorporates uh, this need for the rules articulation. So for this visibility, another thing is this design principle or just generalized for designing the user experience for in each industry for us to provide like in case that you're it's kind of like a usability criteria in case you are not sure what to ask or how to design, you can start with this as well. Related to the concept of visibility is feedback. This is best illustrated by an analogy to what everyday life would be like without it. Imagine trying to play a guitar, slice a bread using a knife, or write using a pen. If none of these actions produce any effect for several seconds, there would be an invariable delay before the music was produced, the bread was cut, or the words appeared on the paper, making it almost impossible for the person to continue with the next strum, cut, or stroke. Various kinds of feedbacks are available for interaction design: audio, tactile, verbal, visual, and combination of these. Deciding which combinations are appropriate for different types of activities and interactivities is central. Using feedback in the right way can also provide the necessary visibility for user interaction. So feedback for me is most useful for people that don't have the senses, for example, sensory senses or like perceptual senses for body senses, like for environmental senses we've discussed in the previous video, because it allows you to signal or provide vibrations in case that people don't understand it. Because like we have really different senses or capabilities that we've been bestowed to us, you know. Constraints. There are various ways this can be achieved. A common design practice in graphical user interface is to deactivate certain menu options by shading them gray, thereby restricting which actions are permissible at that stage of the activities. One of the advantage of this form of constraining is that it prevents incorrect options being selected and thereby reduces the chance of making a mistake. So where do you think these are applicable in the usability goals? It's basically on the safety, because on the safety part of usability goals, we describe how the balance of security and convenience are being uh, balanced. You know, the use of different kind of graphical representations can also constrain a person interpretation of problem or information space. For example, flowchart diagrams show which objects are related to which, thereby constraining the way that the information can be perceived. The physical design of a device can also constrain how it is used. For example, most door locks are designed to allow keys to be inserted one way only. So yeah, you can also do that in physical things such as doorknob